everyone, it's Chaos World here. I'm back with another podcast discussion, and the topic for today is doll threshold. So, how many dolls is too many? So, this question in general is completely subjective. You could have as little as one doll or as many as 50, it's up to you. What I find people struggle with is finding what number of doll is where they're going to stop collecting. Everyone has a threshold for how many dolls they're willing to have, whether they know it or not. And you don't always have to reach your threshold. And you can, if you go over it, you can always get rid of some dolls to get back to it. It's basically whatever is comfortable. So, some things to help figure out whether you have too many or you're getting close to having too many is just answering a few questions. There's probably many more, but these are just 4 that I've gathered for you guys. And as usual, I'm probably going to use myself in some of these explanations / questions, for example, just because I don't have to get permission to use myself. So, one of the things you have to consider if you're at your doll threshold is clothing. So, some people are okay with not having a ton of clothes for your doll. For others, once you don't have enough variety for your dolls to wear, or if dolls get stuck naked, they become stressed about it. It could be a sign that you're at your limit or you need to cut down, basically. The key to it is if the lack of clothes is bugging you. And by bugging, I don't mean like, oh, it's kind of annoying, just mildly annoying. Like very irritated or even angry about it. Then you might need to cut back on the dolls you have or get more clothes. It's up to you. Another thing to help consider if you're at your threshold is space. This is a big one. I'm the type of person who doesn't mind a bunch of dolls huddled together in one spot. That's my bookshelf that I have right now. It doesn't bug me in the slightest. Using the bookshelf as an example, some people prefer each doll to have like a shelf in the bookshelf for a Dollarama or like a scene, background area, whatever. Or maybe they just want one part of the shelf to be for books and the rest for dolls. What depends on the person. Some people have a room just dedicated for dolls and not including like their props and shoes and clothes, etc. Like for when I say space, I'm talking about space for the actual dolls. So it depends on once your space is getting full or it is full, how do you feel? Do you feel cramped in? If so, maybe you're just at the threshold and you need to cut down. For some people, once they run out of space, they just get more. That means their threshold has not been reached and you can continue on collecting more. Some people have, in theory, an unlimited space, which means they put dolls all over their home or wherever in their home, which is, if that's your thing, that's fine. Again, if you start to feel cramped, then you're starting to get to that threshold. I've known some people that live alone and they have dolls literally everywhere and they're still happy and they'll still collect. Do you? That's fine. But in cases where you live with someone else, like family members, roommates, friends, whatever it may be, if the people that you live with start to feel cramped or uncomfortable, maybe it's time to consider if you're at the threshold. So it might not be your own personal threshold, but that's one of those things where you make a small, well, maybe it's big, but when you make a sacrifice for the people you live with, and maybe they're okay with what you have around the house, but adding more will start causing problems, so you stop. Or maybe they don't think there's too many, then you can figure out with them if you're going to cut back or what you're going to do for that. So another thing to consider if you're at your threshold is time. This is another big one, and a lot of collectors get very frustrated over this, just not having enough time for your dolls and doing things for them, maybe making wigs, outfits, maybe doing photo shoots, it's whatever you fancy. A lot of collectors feel guilt, like if they're spending time with some dolls but not spending with others, or they always gravitate towards certain dolls but not others, so the other dolls get neglected. Maybe the neglected dolls just need to move on and you want other ones. It could be a case of that, or it could just be that you're trying to juggle too many dolls. I'm not saying that getting rid of your neglected dolls, that you have to do that. It's just something to consider, that maybe they're not meant to stay. BJDs are definitely a great way to pass time. I can literally just be working or playing with 2 dolls, and like 3 to 4 hours can just pass by. And that's just with 2 dolls. I'm pretty sure if I really wanted to, I could let 3 to 4 hours pass just playing with / working, doing whatever with just 1 doll. So if you don't have enough time for all your dolls all the time, try not to sweat it, because BJDs are fun and they take up time in a blink of an eye. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is the plan. So what I mean by the plan is I'm referring to your reasoning for joining the hobby. So if you join the hobby because you just plan to sew for dolls and sell it, that's a thing you could have went in. Or if you're wanting to do stories with your dolls, whether it's physical stories like writing down pen and paper, or typing stories, or photo stories. You could just like doing photography and like dolls, so you're just using dolls for photography to increase those skills. Whatever you're doing, I find that generally the amount of dolls someone has translates to what they like to do in the hobby. For example, I find like people who like to sew, they might get a size like an MSD, a USD, SD, one of each doll, so they can cater to their customers, and that's it, because they don't have any more need for more dolls. That's what their plan is. Some people, they do that, and they collect more dolls as well on the side to do whatever with. It's totally fine. Some people, if they use dolls for stories, they tend to have a bit more dolls. It's all about what your original intention is. What I'm trying to get at is, when you start collecting extra dolls, does it take away from what your original intention in the hobby was? Like maybe you started off sewing, you get more dolls than you air quote need, and then you start doing stories with the other dolls, and maybe you start making dioramas with the other dolls and doing a bunch of other stuff, and then your sewing thing starts to decline and get neglected, and you start to take away from what you originally intended to do. Maybe you've then sorry about that. Maybe you've then collected too many dolls. Maybe you not balancing everything well enough. You're spending too much time with your leisure dolls versus your like money dolls or trade dolls. So you might sew stuff to trade, whatever it is. There's nothing wrong if there is a change. That you started off sewing to make some money with dolls and then you ended up using your dolls for dioramas. There's nothing wrong with it. Thresholds, they increase and decrease with time in the hobby that I find, and it's because everyone changes and their hobbies usually reflect that. So that's all I have for you guys today. My question for you guys to comment below and chat about, what are your thoughts on the amount of dolls a collector will have? What is your threshold? And what determines the amount of dolls that you have? So thanks for tuning in, and until the next time.